Ivan Trujillo from Colombia is P5 with 110 kilos on mediums. Jean Perrin from Colombia is 6th on mediums. Ivan Trujillo is 5th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal from Colombia is P9 on softs. Alejandro Torres from Colombia is 3rd on softs. Ivan Trujillo is P8 up 19.29. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 4th up 0.42. Alejandro Torres is 2nd up 0.25. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 4th up 0.12. Juan Pablo Aristizabal improved his P4 with a 150.251. 1.811 off pole. Alejandro Torres is provisional pole with a 148.501. Carlos Huertas is P6. Carlos Huertas improved his 5th with a 151.711. 3.271 off pole. Santiago Idarraga from Spain is P6 on softs. Santiago Idarraga improved his P6 with a 152.113. 3.673 off pole. Ivan Trujillo is 11th up 19.98. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P4 up 0.71. Juan Pablo Aristizabal improved his 4th with a 150.026. 1.586 off pole. Santiago Idarraga is 6th up 0.98. Santiago Idarraga improved his 5th with a 151.338. 2.898 off pole. Christian Gomez is provisional pole with a 148.265. Ivan Trujillo is 11th. Ricardo Pineda is 7th up 0.23 on mediums. Ricardo Pineda improved his P6 with a 151.641. 3.376 off pole. Santiago Idarraga is P5 up 0.52. Ten minutes remaining in the session. Santiago Idarraga improved his 5th with a 150.442. 2.177 off pole. Christian Gomez is provisional pole with a 147.879. Juan Barbosa is P8. Mendoza improved is 9th with a 152.115. 4.236 off pole. Jean Ferrand is P3 up 0.32 on mediums. Jean Ferrand improved is P3 with a 149.057. 1.178 off pole. Carlos Huertas from Colombia is 8th up 0.94 with 110 kilos on softs. Carlos Huertas improved is 7th with a 150.823. 2.944 off pole. Ivan Trujillo is P12 up 7.16 with 110 kilos. P6 up 0.25. Best lap is a 150.442. 2.563 off pole. Juan Pablo Aristizábal is P4 up 0.28. Five minutes remaining in the session. Alejandro Torres is P2 up 0.33. Alejandro Torres improved is P2 with a 148.154. 0.275 off pole. Camilo Gomez from Colombia is P13 with 110 kilos on softs. Christian Gomez from Colombia is first up 0.11. Alejandro Torres is P2 up 0.12. Christian Gomez is first. Santiago Idarraga is sixth. Christian Gomez from Colombia is P1 up 0.10. Jean Parent is third up 0.10. Jean Ferrand improved is third with a 148.823. 0.944 off pole. J.Enriquez from Colombia is fifth. J.Enriquez improved is P5 with a 149.609. 1.730 off pole. The qualifying session is now in overtime. Ricardo Pineda is 8th up 0.11 with 110 kilos. J.Enriquez is P5 up 0.77. Santiago Idarraga is P6 up 0.11. Ricardo Pineda is P8 up 0.67. The race session is at Autódromo Internacional Termas de Rio Hondo in Santiago del Estero, Argentina. The wind speed is 20 km/h from the southeast. Race start. Director entering the pits is 14th. Alejandro Torres from Colombia is P2 on softs. Juan Barbosa from Colombia is P4 with 110 kilos on softs. Jean Perrin from Colombia is P5 on mediums. Santiago Idarraga from Spain is 7th on softs. Daniel Quintero is 10th with 110 kilos on softs. Ivan Trujillo from Colombia is 11th with 110 kilos on mediums. Ricardo Pineda from Colombia is 9th with 110 kilos on mediums. Daniel Quintero is 10th. Daniel Quintero lost P10 to Ivan Trujillo. Daniel Quintero passed Ivan Trujillo for 10th. Camilo Gomez entering the pits is P12. Carlos Huertas is P4. Camilo Gomez exiting pits on softs. Carlos Huertas lost P4 to Jean Parent. Juan Carlos Guerin is P7. J.Enriquez from Colombia is 7. Alejandro Torres is 3rd, 0.5 behind Juan Barbosa. Juan Barbosa is 3rd with 110 kilos battling Alejandro Torres. Juan Barbosa lost P3 to Jean Ferrand. J.Enriquez is P7 driving at Torino, 0.8 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Juan Barbosa on lap 3 is 4th, 0.9 behind Jean Ferrand. J.Enriquez on lap 3 is P7, 0.4 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Juan Carlos Guerin from Colombia is 6th, 0.4 ahead of J.Enriquez. Carlos Huertas from Colombia is 6th with 110 kilos on softs, 0.3 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. J.Enriquez is 7th, 0.4 behind Carlos Huertas. Juan Barbosa is 6th, 0.4 ahead of J.Enriquez. J.Enriquez was 1.2 faster last lap. Juan Barbosa entering the pits is P7. Jean Ferrand from Colombia is 3rd, 1.4 behind Alejandro Torres. Santiago Idarraga is 8th, 0.9 behind Ricardo Pineda. Juan Barbosa exiting pits on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal from Colombia is P9 on softs, 1.1 behind Santiago Idarraga. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is now in. Carlos Huertas is 6th, 0.8 behind J.Enriquez. Juan Pablo Aristizabal on lap 4 is 8th, 0.5 behind Santiago Idarraga. Juan Pablo Aristizabal passed Santiago Idarraga for P7. Santiago Idarraga is 8th on softs, 0.8 behind Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Daniel Quintero is 11th driving a Alfa Romeo, 0.9 behind Ivan Trujillo. Alejandro Torres from Colombia is 2nd, 2.2 ahead of Jean Ferrand. Juan Barbosa is P13 on mediums, 0.5 behind Camilo Gomez. Juan Barbosa passed Camilo Gomez for P12. Daniel Quintero is 11th with 110 kilos, 0.8 behind Ivan Trujillo. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 7th, 0.4 behind Carlos Huertas. Daniel Quintero is P11 battling Ivan Trujillo. Daniel Quintero passed Ivan Trujillo for P10. Ivan Trujillo is P11 battling Daniel Quintero. Daniel Quintero is 11th driving a Alfa Romeo, 0.4 behind Ivan Trujillo. Camilo Gomez from Colombia is P13 with 110 kilos on softs. Santiago Idarraga is P8, 1.8 behind Carlos Huertas. J.Enriquez is 5th driving at Torino, 3.0 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Santiago Idarraga is P8, 0.5 behind Carlos Huertas. Santiago Idarraga was 1.5 faster last lap. Carlos Huertas is P8 on softs. Santiago Idarraga is P7, 0.8 ahead of Carlos Huertas. Camilo Gomez is P13. Ricardo Pineda is P9 on mediums. J.Enriquez on lap 9 is 5th, 2.0 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. J.Enriquez was 0.9 faster last lap. Santiago Idarraga is P7, 1.6 ahead of Carlos Huertas. J.Enriquez is P5, 2.1 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Ivan Trujillo is P10. Christian Gomez from Colombia is first. Ivan Trujillo is 10th on mediums. Jean Ferrand is P3, 3.2 behind Alejandro Torres. J.Enriquez is 5th, 3.0 behind Juan Carlos Guarin. Jean Ferrand is P3, 0.2 behind Alejandro Torres. J.Enriquez is P5 driving at Torino, 4.7 ahead of Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Carlos Huertas is 8th with 110 kilos. Juan Barbosa is P12 on mediums. Camilo Gomez entering the pits is 13th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 7th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal entering the pits is 7th. Carlos Huertas is 7th driving a Alfa Romeo. Ricardo Pineda entering the pits is P9. Camilo Gomez exiting pits on mediums. Daniel Quintero is P9. Ricardo Pineda exiting pits on hards. Juan Barbosa is P11, 0.9 behind Ricardo Pineda. Juan Barbosa was 33.2 faster last lap. Ricardo Pineda is P11 on hards. Best lap is a 151.292. 2.335 off the fastest lap. Juan Pablo Aristizabal exiting pits on softs. Alejandro Torres is second, 3.4 ahead of Jean Ferrand. Ivan Trujillo is 8th. Ivan Trujillo entering the pits is P8. Daniel Quintero is P9. Daniel Quintero passed Ivan Trujillo for 8th. Daniel Quintero entering the pits is P1. Juan Pablo Aristizabal on lap 12 is 12th. Ivan Trujillo exiting pits on hards. Juan Carlos Guerin entering the pits is 5th. Juan Carlos Guerin is 5th. J.Enriquez entering the pits is 6th. Ivan Trujillo on lap 13 is P11 on hards. Daniel Quintero exiting pits on softs. Ivan Trujillo is now 10th. Carlos Huertas is 7th driving a Alfa Romeo. Carlos Huertas entering the pits is P7. Alejandro Torres is P2, 2.7 ahead of Jean Ferrand. Juan Carlos Guerin exiting pits. J.Enriquez exiting pits. Carlos Huertas is 7th on hards. Carlos Huertas exiting pits on hards. Christian Gomez entering the pits is 1st. Christian Gomez is P1. Alejandro Torres entering the pits is 2nd. Jean Ferrand entering the pits is 3rd. Jean Ferrand is 2nd. J.Enriquez is P5, 4.4 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. J.Enriquez was 2.8 faster last lap. Christian Gomez is 1st. Christian Gomez exiting pits. Santiago Idarraga entering the pits is P4. Jean Ferrand exiting pits on softs. Alejandro Torres exiting pits on mediums. Santiago Idarraga is 4th.
Base.
Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 11th. Ricardo Pineda is P9, 1.5 behind Juan Barbosa. Santiago Idarraga exiting pits on mediums. Juan Carlos Guerin is P4. Ricardo Pineda on lap 15 is P9, 0.7 behind Juan Barbosa. J.Enriquez is P5, 4.9 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Ricardo Pineda is P9 driving at Alfa Romeo, 0.3 behind Juan Barbosa. Camilo Gomez entering the pits is 13th. Carlos Huertas is 7th on hards, 1.4 behind Santiago Idarraga. Camilo Gomez exiting pits on mediums. Ricardo Pineda is P9, 1.3 behind Juan Barbosa. Juan Carlos Guerin is P4, 5.0 ahead of J.Enriquez. Christian Gomez is P1. Ricardo Pineda is 9th with 110 kilos, 1.0 behind Juan Barbosa. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P11, 1.4 behind Ivan Trujillo. Ricardo Pineda is P9, 0.5 behind Juan Barbosa. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P11, 0.3 behind Ivan Trujillo. Juan Pablo Aristizabal passed Ivan Trujillo for P10. Ricardo Pineda is 9th with 110 kilos, 0.3 behind Juan Barbosa. Ricardo Pineda passed Juan Barbosa for 8th. Juan Barbosa entering the pits is P9. Juan Barbosa is P9. Christian Gomez is first. Jean Ferrand is third on softs battling Alejandro Torres. Jean Ferrand passed Alejandro Torres for second. Juan Barbosa exiting pits on mediums. Santiago Idarraga from Spain is P6 on mediums, 4.1 ahead of Carlos Huertas. Carlos Huertas is 7th driving a Alfa Romeo, 4.3 behind Santiago Idarraga. Daniel Quintero is 12th driving a Alfa Romeo. Ivan Trujillo is P10. Carlos Huertas is 7th. Best lap is a 1:52.543. 3.586 off the fastest lap. Christian Gomez is P1. Ricardo Pineda is 8th, 1.3 behind Carlos Huertas. Camilo Gomez is 13th on mediums. Juan Barbosa entering the pits is 11th. Juan Carlos Guerin is 4th, 3.1 ahead of J.Enriquez. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P9. Ricardo Pineda is P8, 1.3 behind Carlos Huertas. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P9. Juan Barbosa exiting pits on softs. Ricardo Pineda is P8 driving an Alfa Romeo, 1.3 behind Carlos Huertas. Ivan Trujillo is P6, 0.2 ahead of Santiago Idarraga. Santiago Idarraga was 1.6 faster last lap. Ivan Trujillo lost 9th to Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Ricardo Pineda is 8th, 0.2 behind Carlos Huertas. Ivan Trujillo is 10th. Ricardo Pineda is P8 on hards, 0.5 behind Carlos Huertas. Ricardo Pineda passed Carlos Huertas for P7. Alejandro Torres from Colombia is 3rd on mediums. J.Enriquez is P5, 2.1 behind Juan Carlos Guerin. Ivan Trujillo is P6 battling Santiago Idarraga. Ivan Trujillo lost 9th to Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Juan Barbosa is 13th, 0.4 behind Camilo Gomez. Santiago Idarraga is 6th. Alejandro Torres is P3. Juan Carlos Guerin is 4th, 3.0 ahead of J.Enriquez. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P9. Juan Pablo Aristizabal entering the pits is 9th. Ivan Trujillo is 10th. Ivan Trujillo passed Juan Pablo Aristizabal for P9. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P10. Juan Pablo Aristizabal exiting pits on mediums. Santiago Idarraga is P6. Juan Carlos Guerin is P4, 1.7 ahead of J.Enriquez. Juan Carlos Guerin lost P4 to J.Enriquez. Santiago Idarraga from Spain is P6. J.Enriquez is 4th. Alejandro Torres is third. Best lap is a 1:49.171. 0.214 off the fastest lap. Jean Ferrand is P2 on softs. Alejandro Torres is P3. Jean Ferrand entering the pits is second. Alejandro Torres passed Jean Ferrand for second. Ivan Trujillo is 8th. J.Enriquez entering the pits is 4th. Jean Ferrand exiting pits on softs. Christian Gomez is P1. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 9th on mediums. J.Enriquez exiting pits. Daniel Quintero entering the pits is 11th. Ricardo Pineda entering the pits is P6. Ricardo Pineda is 6th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P9. Best lap is a 1:49.291. 0.334 off the fastest lap. Christian Gomez entering the pits is P1. Ivan Trujillo is 8th. Ivan Trujillo entering the pits is P8. Daniel Quintero exiting pits on mediums. Ricardo Pineda exiting pits on softs. Christian Gomez exiting pits. Juan Barbosa is 13th. Ivan Trujillo is P9 driving a Alfa Romeo. Camilo Gomez entering the pits is 12th. Ivan Trujillo exiting pits on hards. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P8, 1.4 behind Ricardo Pineda. Camilo Gomez exiting pits on softs. Carlos Huertas is 6th. Carlos Huertas entering the pits is P6. Alejandro Torres entering the pits is P1. Alejandro Torres is first. Juan Barbosa on lap 25 is P13. Carlos Huertas is 8th. Carlos Huertas exiting pits on softs. J.Enriquez from Colombia is P5, 0.3 behind Santiago Idarraga. Santiago Idarraga was 5.7 faster last lap. Alejandro Torres exiting pits on mediums. Santiago Idarraga is 5th, 0.2 behind J.Enriquez. Santiago Idarraga entering the pits is P5. Daniel Quintero is 10th with 110 kilos on mediums. Santiago Idarraga is 5th. Santiago Idarraga exiting pits on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal on lap 29 is P6. Ivan Trujillo is P9 driving at Alfa Romeo. Ricardo Pineda is 7th on softs, 4.4 ahead of Carlos Huertas. Ivan Trujillo is P9. Christian Gomez is P1 driving a Ford. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 6th. Camilo Gomez is P11 on songs. J.Enriquez is P4. Carlos Huertas is P8 driving a Alfa Romeo, 3.2 behind Ricardo Pineda. Ricardo Pineda is P8 driving a Alfa Romeo battling Carlos Huertas. Ricardo Pineda passed Carlos Huertas for 7th. Santiago Idarraga from Spain is P5. Carlos Huertas is 8th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 6th, 4.9 behind Santiago Idarraga. Ivan Trujillo is 9th. Best lap is a 1:53.187. 4.454 off the fastest lap. J.Enriquez is 4th. Carlos Huertas is 8th. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 6th, 1.0 behind Santiago Idarraga. Santiago Idarraga is 5th driving a Chevrolet, 0.7 ahead of Juan Pablo Aristizabal. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is P6 driving a Chevrolet, 1.3 behind Santiago Idarraga. Juan Barbosa is 12, 0.4 behind Camilo Gomez. Daniel Quintero is 10th on mediums. Juan Pablo Aristizabal is 6th driving a Chevrolet, 0.5 behind Santiago Idarraga. Juan Barbosa is 12th battling Camilo Gomez. Has just finished the race. Christian Gomez finished first. Santiago Idarraga finished P5. Juan Pablo Aristizabal finished P6. Jean Perrin finished P2. Camilo Gomez finished 11th. Juan Barbosa finished 12th. Alejandro Torres finished 3rd. Ricardo Pineda finished P7. Daniel Quintero finished P10. Carlos Huertas finished 8th. J.Enriquez finished 4th. Trujillo finished 9th.